defining trait of the Hong Kong Jockey Club is outstanding customer service. Yesterday, there's been so many good things said about the Hong Kong Jockey Club and the model here over the last day and a half. And yesterday in this room, Mark Twain was quoted. And so I'll begin my presentation with this quote from the greatest of all time, my hero, Muhammad Ali. And I go to him only to say, I too believe that this is the best racing and wagering model in the world, as many do. And if not, it has to be at the very top of the list for everybody. And Ali once said, "It ain't bragging if it's true." So with that, I'll kind of take you through our model in a very quick way. I know we're pressed for time. The main thing about the Hong Kong Jockey Club is it channels gaming demand in a very responsible way. And it's been said yesterday many times, in which it delivers back to the community, both in betting duty and in charity. But above all else, the club takes great pride in its role of producing world-class racing and wagering entertainment. Now, it all begins here with the distribution of the Hong Kong betting dollar. This is what makes it all possible. When you look at the distribution, the return to the customer is nearly 84%. The government gets a big share, 11.7%, and the Jockey Club is left with 4.4%. Just over 99% of all wagering on horse racing in Hong Kong is pari-mutuel. The only fixed odds bet is a unique bet, the Jockey Challenge, and it accounts for less than 1% of the total. Now, if we look at the annual betting duty from horse racing alone over the last 10 years in Hong Kong dollars, you can see that in 04-05 it was 8.3 billion. It dropped to 7.9, and since then it's been rising. The forecast for this season is 11.8 billion to the government. Now, comparing annual racing turnover, and now we change the currency to US dollars and compare Hong Kong to USA, you can see over the last nearly 10 years here, with USA in blue, Hong Kong in red. If you go back to 2006, USA was at 14.8 billion US dollars and Hong Kong was at 7.7. But we've been going in opposite directions. To the credit of USA, they've stabilized at nearly 11 billion over the last 4 years. But we've continued to move forward, and this year we believe it will be a new record, 13.2 billion, and we'll go very close and possibly overtake Australia this year in thoroughbred racing in that code. At 13.2 billion, it'll be very close between Hong Kong and Australia in this year, and this may be the first year that we do overtake Australia. Now, the Hong Kong Jockey Club is the sole provider of 3 products: horse racing, football betting, and the Mark VI lottery. It is a membership club with over 23,000 active members. And one of the unique parts of the Jockey Club is that to be a horse owner in Hong Kong, you must be a member of the club. And there is an annual ballot held each year in June in which we'll award 330 permits. But we'll get about 1,200 applicants for those 330 permits, so a lot of people will be disappointed on the day. But it does show and it does demonstrate the laws of supply and demand. The demand for horse ownership here among our members is quite high, and the supply or the opportunity is limited. No single person can own more than 4 horses at one time as an individual owner. We do have partnerships, we do have syndicates. Syndicates are a minimum of 5 people up to 50 people. But more than all, I think with horse ownership comes great status and prestige to be a horse owner in Hong Kong, and that's why it's so coveted. We do have 4 clubhouses. We have one at Sha Tin, we have one at Happy Valley, one at Bees River, and we have opened one in Beijing. So that's for our 23,000 members to enjoy. There is no breeding in Hong Kong, as you know, so all horses are imported, mostly from the southern hemisphere, about 40% from Australia, 30% from New Zealand, and the other 30% from the northern hemisphere, primarily Europe. When members register a horse upon import, they must put up 60,000 Hong Kong dollars, which will then come back to them when their horse retires. And this will partially fund a good retirement for the horse. The Jockey Club recently approved a fund of $5 million that we will put up for horses that retire that need rehabilitation overseas. for those horses that are not ready for a second career in equestrian or paddock retirement but need some special attention. And that was recently approved by our racing committee last month. As an employer, we employ 5,700 plus full-time employees and 18,000 part-time, one of the biggest employers in Hong Kong. We train and employ grooms, work riders, head lads, assistant trainers, and farriers. We have our own apprentice jockey school. Many of those apprentice jockeys you'll see at Happy Valley Riding tonight. And stable staff share in prize money 10% of the total. With the club, there's a vertical integration that is consistent throughout all platforms. And as I go through this presentation, you'll see it. We operate, we license, we regulate. Broadcasting, catering, the betting, the tote, everything is owned and operated by the club. So if you're a licensed horse trainer in Hong Kong, you have no payroll. The club trains and employs all of the stable staff. And as we go through the veterinarians, which are employed by the club, all vet bills, feed, bedding, everything is billed directly by the club to the owner. I mentioned broadcasting services briefly. We produce approximately 7,000 hours of racing TV each season in 3 different languages: Cantonese, English, Putonghua. We have our own IP rights. Racing support, the photo finish, is done by the club, so it's completely vertically aligned. Now, in the quality of our racing, something we take great pride in, we now have 5 races included in the list of the IFHA's World's Top 50 Group 1 races. 3 of them occur on the big day, the Hong Kong International Race Day in December, the Hong Kong Cup, the Hong Kong Mile, and the Hong Kong Sprint, all sponsored by Longines. Last week or 2 weeks ago, the Audemars Piguet QE2 Cup, and then the race that you would have seen, most of you would have seen on Sunday, the Champions Mile. There were also 21 horses included in the world rankings last year. That was an equal best for us, and it was the 5th highest among all countries in the world. Our top races embrace the spirit of international competition at the very highest level. And our horses have traveled overseas to win at Royal Ascot, in Japan, Singapore, and most recently in Dubai. We also welcome international horses coming to Hong Kong, competing and also winning in our top races. Now, with veterinary services, all clinical and regulatory vets are employed by the club. All clinical findings must be fully documented and shared with the veterinary regulatory department. So everything is really well documented, and it helps to really, in terms of public trust and good governance and integrity, this is a very big and featured part of our organization. In terms of regulatory veterinary services, all horses must be presented for an official pre-race vet inspection the morning prior to any race day. And then there are OVEs, official veterinary examinations, performed for any horse that may have demonstrated any injury, illness, or poor past performance in its last race before being entered to race again. Medication, much like every country in Asia, all horses must be free of medication on race day. All supplements and medications must be approved by the club's veterinary department, and they go through our pharmacy. The racing lab is one of the best in the world. It's a reference lab in Asia for the FEI. It has never reported a false positive during its 44-year history. World-class, reliable service and a great deterrent to any cheating or misconduct in racing here in Hong Kong. There's pre-race screening of all declared starters the day before race day, or I should say on race day. Random testing of feed and bedding samples. The number of samples analyzed last season was over 22,000. It's a very busy lab and a very, very creditable lab that we take great pride in. Racing control, we talk about integrity, public trust, governance. One of our 12 board stewards will chair the panel on each of our 83 race days. It really has a reputation as the world-class standard for regulation in the sport. The stewards have a terrific support structure in that they have great resources to work with, but with the amount of wagering in Hong Kong, it's incumbent upon us to make sure that Racing Control is afforded every chance, every resource to make sure it conducts its business in a way to uphold public trust, and they do that. Racing Control works very closely with regulatory arms as well as security and integrity. And again, as I mentioned, public confidence is imperative. When you look at the wagering levels in Hong Kong, over 130 million Hong Kong dollars per race, which is over 17 million US per race. The 8 races tonight, it's likely that the turnover will be right around 1.1 billion Hong Kong, just to put that in perspective. Licensing, the club will issue licenses annually to trainers, jockeys, and assistant trainers to a select number of people. We have 24 trainers in Hong Kong. At various times, we could be up to 25 jockeys. Applicants are subjected to intense background checks to ensure only people of the highest reputation and standard are invited to participate in our racing. Now, I started the presentation and our structure with betting, which makes everything possible, as we will do over 100 billion Hong Kong this year. But in the end, with our reserves, after we pay enormous betting duty to the government, it is a not-for-profit model. Charities began donating its surplus in 1955, and it's the biggest charity benefactor in Hong Kong, supporting 160 charitable and community initiatives last season. You can see the increase in the charity trust donations over the last 10 years. It's doubled from right at $1 billion in season 03-04, and last season nearly $2 billion. We've also invested back in the race courses over an 8-year program that started in 2009 and will continue through 2017. It's a key enabler of the club's effort to revitalize racing. And the master plan has addressed a couple of things, the needed upkeep of the aging race courses and the property assets at Sha Tin and Happy Valley, but also the introduction of a new range of customer-themed initiatives that make it more comfortable and more entertaining for different customer segments when they come racing at our 2 race courses. That investment from season 2009-2010 to the current season has been 3.5 billion Hong Kong dollars, and further investments are planned through season 2017-18.
Military attack. Let the war begin. The cup's on its way. Here he comes. A keeper feed rests the lead in the cup, and a keeper feed draws away to beat Tokai Halo. They're off in the Longines, Hong Kong bound, and there's a great line out of the gates, and the favourite. The Glorious Days. Great training performance by John Size, going in cold and winning the Hong Kong mile Glorious Days. And the $14 million Audemars Piguet QE2 Cup. The racing. Designs on Rome, and Designs on Rome wears him down. And they're off and racing in the Champions Mile. The first international success and Variety Club. Lord Kanaloa, he's going to make it back-to-back wins in the spread. He's swan song of racing. Attacker spearing away with the Gold Cup. Military Attacker, big winner. And a Keeper Feed draws away to beat Tokai Halo. It's been a big year for Zach Burton, and he wins the first of the group features, dominant.
On the outside's going home the winner. 1-2 for Hong Kong. Sterling City beats Rich Tapestry. 8 for Amber
military attack, designs on Rome, and designs on Rome.
Now, our ongoing and future initiatives, to wrap this up, we're going to continue to make investment in our master plan through 17-18. That will be ongoing. We're also building a training center in Chongfa, which is about 3 hours away. It's a breakthrough historic moment for the club to have a training center in China. That's due to open in 2017-18, and you'll hear more about that tomorrow. And finally, we're sharing this incredible racing and wagering experience now with a global audience. We've been simulcasting in a separate pool format for many years, but now we've been enabled by government to do it in a commingled format. And it's our intention by next season we already have America on board, but we intend to also have Australia, New Zealand, hopefully Macau, South Africa, Europe, and Singapore as well to join us in our lineup next season, and allow people overseas to be able to bet in these huge pools and enjoy the great liquidity that's offered that you'll experience tonight in all bet types. But I thank you for your time here. It's been a pleasure to share this with you, and I hope you have a great time tonight at Happy Valley. Thank you.